Good morning. It's great to be back with you again today to talk about another one of our Bible lessons. Now, for the past 6 weeks, we've learned about many of God's promises. When God makes a promise, God keeps that promise. Over the next 4 weeks, our lessons will be about God sightings. I know you've heard about those before. This should be a really easy thing for many of you, because we've been sharing God sightings for a while now. So for the first type of binoculars that we could be making, you take a piece of construction paper, fold it in half, and then cut it along that fold line. You can choose any color you like. I just happen to grab a piece of red paper. And then, to make your first lens for your binocular, you just take that half a sheet of paper and roll it up so it's a good size for your eyeball. Like about that. Whatever works for your eyes, whatever you think looks best. And then take some Scotch tape and tape that together. So basically what I did was I did the same thing with the other half of the sheet. So now we have 2 lenses for our binoculars. And what we're going to do with that is take another piece of Scotch tape, and you're going to tape them together, kind of on the inside. So you stick some tape on the inside of this, so it sits up kind of like this. And then line those up together. And just tuck that piece of tape right in the other side so that they hold together. And then just repeat that for the other side. Tuck it inside like this. And then bend it over. And there you have a very simple pair of binoculars. For our second type of binocular, if you prefer to do this type, you'll need 2 toilet paper rolls. Now, most homes are going to have that. And duct tape. I chose some colorful duct tape. You might want to just use some gray that you have around the house, or maybe you have some colorful duct tape that you could use. And the other thing that you'll need is some yarn. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to cut 6 pieces of duct tape, and each one should be 6 inches long. So when you have your 6-inch piece of duct tape, you'll lay that down on the table, and then just a little bit in from the edge of the duct tape, you'll lay down your toilet paper roll. So you can see right here that there's a little bit of an edge yet, and you just take and roll your toilet paper roll along the tape until it meets up on the other end. And then just take and tuck that extra edge inside. Okay? And then you'll take another 6-inch piece of duct tape and do the same thing on the other side. Tucking in the edges. And of course, one more piece, where's that going to go? You got it, cover up that inside belly of that toilet paper roll so everything is coated. And there's nothing to tuck in because it's not on the edge. And there you have your covered toilet paper roll. Instead of looking like this, it's all pretty like this one. Next, you're going to want to cut another piece of your duct tape, about anywhere from 11 to 12 inches long, because you need it to wrap around both of your lenses. So you're going to lay out your duct tape, and about in the middle, just line up your two lenses like this, and wrap the duct tape around it to hold the lenses together. Just that simply. Then, with a paper punch, if you have one, you'll want to punch a hole on this side, like that, and a hole on this side. You see how you've got a hole on here and a hole on here. And then take some of your yarn, and you want to get a big enough piece so that you're going to be able to put that yarn over your head. We'll see how this does. We're just guessing for a good length of yarn. And then you take an end through one of your holes. Sometimes it can be a little tricky if that yarn splits like mine did. And then just tie a knot. On this end, and then you can trim that back, but don't trim it too close because otherwise you'll cut your knot. Trim that away. And on the other end, put that through the hole on the other side. Tying another knot. And there you have a set of binoculars, just like this. So you can choose to make the one out of construction paper. You don't have to make it quite as tall if you don't want to. If you wanted to put yarn on the end of this, you could do that as well and make yourself, the string to hold it around your neck. Whichever set you like best is the type you can make. And we'll talk a little bit later about what we're going to do with those binoculars. In our story last week, we learned that David wanted to build a temple for God, but God told him not to because God had different plans for David. God promised to bless David and his family and his kingdom forever. Many years later, God's people forgot about God's promises and started to serve other gods. This made God so very sad. God sent prophets to remind the Israelites of those promises. One of those prophets was named Elijah. God sent Elijah to tell King Ahab that it would not rain for a long, long time. Everyone was thirsty, but God looked after Elijah. He sent Elijah far away to live by a stream and told him to wait there until God sent rain again. But Elijah was very hungry and prayed to God. God looked after Elijah. He sent raven birds, those are like blackbirds, to feed him. God told him that the ravens would bring him food and bread and meat to eat every day. One day the stream dried up because it hadn't rained in such a long time. God told Elijah to go to a town called Zarephath, where there would be a woman who could help him. Now there was a woman who lived in Zarephath with her son. A widow is a woman who has lost her husband. There was hardly any food or water in the whole land because it hadn't rained in such a long time. Elijah was really hungry and he needed food, so he asked the woman for a piece of bread. But she didn't have any bread to give him. She only had a bit of flour and a teeny tiny bit of oil. But she said, I only have just enough flour and oil to make a little bit of bread for me and my son. Then we won't have anything left to eat. God told Elijah how he planned to help. Elijah said to the woman, make some bread for you and me and your son. The flour won't be used up. The oil won't be used up. There will always be more flour and oil until it rains again. The woman baked her bread. Then she looked at her jars of flour and oil. And do you know what she saw? It was the most amazing thing. She had just used up all the flour and all the oil to make the bread, but there was still more flour and still more oil in the jars. God made sure it didn't run out. So the woman baked more bread and more bread and more, and there was still plenty of flour and oil. Elijah and the woman and her son all had enough food to eat. God took care of all of them, and God will take care of you. So it's time to think about our highs, something exciting that happened for the week, and our lows, something that maybe makes you feel a little bit sad, and then those God sightings. My high for the week, and it has been for the last couple of weeks, is watching my grandsons Isaac and Thomas play football. I've also been able to watch DeAndre, but usually Isaac and Thomas's games have been streamed, so even though we're not able to watch them in person, I can still see them on my computer. Isaac is a quarterback, and Thomas is a middle linebacker on defense. It's sad that it isn't safe to have lots of people at the games, but it's so awesome that I can watch them play on my computer in what they call live stream. The good part about watching a game this way is I don't have to sit outside in the cold. I can stay inside my house where it's warm and still watch them play. Plus, it's such a delight to see those boys do something they love. Now, low for the week. This last week, I spent some time putting away a lot of my garden decorations. I love to put lots of things out in my gardens and in my yard, and Tom and I put things out on our porch. We put up wind chimes and all those types of things just to make it enjoyable to sit outside because we spend a lot of time in our yard and on our front porch. But with winter coming, it's time to put all those things away. So we put away the lawn decorations. Tom took down the porch swing, which is always sad because I like to sit on my front porch and swing on that, especially with my granddaughter Eliza. And then the wind chimes were put away too. So there isn't that wonderful tinkling sound on our front porch. Those are all things that we enjoy so much over the summer months, during the warm time of the year. But now it's time to put them away for the winter. Check out this really awesome God sighting. The beautiful pink and blue sky against the cornfield. Just the great colors that God paints the sky is just incredible. So I bet you've been wondering what we're going to do with those binoculars that we made earlier. I have my pair. How about you? So I'm going to put my binoculars on, and we're going to use these to do some God sighting. Now, a God sighting basically is anything that we see or notice that shows God's love. God's love is all over the place. He creates many things for us and She is always with us. So we know that no matter where we are, we could find some God sightings if we really look hard enough. Now, if I were to take my binoculars and look out the window. Oh, why don't you look out the window with me? What do you see? Now, I see a tree. What's something you see? Maybe you see the grass. Or do you see a friend walking down the street? Oh, up in the tree, look at the bird. So many different God sightings out there. These binoculars are really handy when it comes to God sighting. You know, we can see God's power and creativity when we look at what God created. We can see God's love too, because God created these things for us to enjoy. So now that you have your binoculars, we're going to be really looking forward to doing lots more God sightings in the future. Today we looked at some of what God created, and we saw God's power, creativity, and love. There are so many different kinds of God sightings. Sometimes we see God's love in a friendly face or a smile. Sometimes we see God's love when we feel better after feeling sad. Sometimes we feel God's love when we are sad and sense God's comfort and peace. This week, you have a special look and see assignment. Use those binoculars that you made to look for God's love all around you all day and every day. Then share those God sightings you found with your binoculars with an adult so that they can share them with me in an email or a text. I sure do look forward to hearing the big and small ways that you saw God this week. Keep the binoculars where you know that they're going to be safe, because you're going to need them over the next couple of weeks as we continue to share stories about God's sightings. That brings us to the end of our time together this morning. Today we learned that God provides for us, often in ways that we don't expect. When it seems like there's no way to get through a tough time, and we're tempted to complain, withdraw, or just give up, we know that even during those challenging times, we're able to recognize and be blessed by God's provisions when we take time to look past the situation and look to God. God will provide. So if you could fold your hands and bow your heads and close your eyes, we'll join together in a popcorn prayer. That means I'll say a line and then you say a line. So let's join together for prayer. Thank you, God, that you keep filling us with your love. Help us to see all that you do to take care of us. Help us to show your love in all the ways we can. Amen. So you have a super week. Stay safe. Don't eat too much of that Halloween candy if you were out trick-or-treating. And I hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.